Please don't come inside. Chinese widow begged the lone rancher. The blizzard had been raging for 3 days when death came knocking at My Lin Chen's door. She heard the horse first, hoof stumbling through knee-deep snow, the animal's labored breathing cutting through the howling wind. Then came the sound that made her blood freeze, the heavy thud of a body hitting the ground just beyond her porch. My Lin pressed herself against the cabin wall, rifle in hand, peering through the frost-covered window at the figure sprawled in the snow. Even through the swirling white, she could see he was large, dangerous-looking, with a gun belt that marked him as the kind of man decent women cross the street to avoid. Lian stirred in her small bed near the fireplace, her 6-year-old face flushed with fever. My Lin's heart clenched. Her daughter had been sick for 2 days, and they were running dangerously low on the traditional herbs she'd brought from her homeland. The nearest doctor was in Crimson Falls, 20 miles through mountain passes that were now completely impassable. A weak knock echoed through the cabin. "Please," came a voice, rough with cold and exhaustion. "I know you're in there. Just need shelter till the storm passes." My Lin's grip tightened on her rifle. 3 years of widowhood in the Colorado wilderness had taught her hard lessons about trusting strangers, especially the white men who looked at her with either pity or suspicion. "Go away," she called through the door, her voice steady. "There's nothing for you here. My horse is down. I'm hurt. Won't make it through the night." The voice faded, followed by a groan of pain. My Lin's conscience, a trait her late husband Wei had always said was too soft for this harsh land, began to tug at her. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the storm's fury and Lian's labored breathing. Through the window, My Lin watched the man struggle to his feet, swaying dangerously. Blood stained the snow beneath him. "Please don't come inside," she said, her voice carrying a warning sharp as winter steel. "I've got a sick child and a loaded gun. Whatever you're running from, whatever you've done, keep moving." The stranger raised his head, and for one heart-stopping moment, his eyes met hers through the glass. Even at a distance, she could see something in those dark depths that made her breath catch. Not just desperation, this was something deeper, something that looked almost like recognition. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said quietly, his voice carrying despite the wind. "Name's Wade Morrison. And I know who you are, My Lin Chen." The sound of her name on this dangerous stranger's lips sent ice through her veins. How did he know her? What did he want? In Crimson Falls, My Lin was known as the strange Chinese widow, the woman whose knowledge of herbs and roots was whispered about with a mixture of fear and grudging respect. Most folks avoided her isolated homestead. But this man, this Wade Morrison, had sought her out deliberately. As Lian's fevered whimper pierced the storm-darkened cabin, My Lin realized that sometimes salvation came wrapped in danger. Her hands trembled as she watched Wade Morrison struggle to remain upright. Blood continued to seep from somewhere beneath his dark coat, staining the pristine white crimson. Behind her, Lian's breathing had grown more labored, each small cough like a knife to My Lin's heart. She was trapped. Let a dangerous stranger into her home, or watch him die on her doorstep while her daughter burned with fever. "How do you know my name?" My Lin called through the door, rifle still aimed. "Your husband," Wade replied, his voice growing weaker. "Wei Chen. He saved my life once. Told me if I ever needed help, his wife in the mountains was the kind of woman who could work miracles." My Lin's breath caught. Wei had been gone 3 years, killed in the copper mine collapse that had taken 12 other men. He'd rarely spoken of his life before she joined him in America, but she knew he'd traveled widely. Wei never mentioned anyone named Morrison, she said, though uncertainty crept into her voice. Wade managed a bitter laugh that ended in a cough. "He knew me by a different name then. Before I became what I am now. Look, I'm not going to make it much longer out here. And if what I've heard about your daughter's sickness is true, you need what I can offer as much as I need shelter." "What do you mean?" My Lin demanded. "There's medicine in my saddlebags. Real medicine from Denver. Fever reducers, tonics, things that could save the little 1 inch." His voice grew strained. "But if I die out here, Lian dies, too," The words hit My Lin like a physical blow. Medicine. Real American medicine, not just the ginseng and willow bark remedies she'd been desperately trying to make work. Lian had been fighting this fever for days, and My Lin could see her daughter weakening. Through the window, she watched Wade's legs buckle. "Mama," Lian's weak voice came from behind her. "Who's outside?" My Lin turned to see her daughter trying to sit up, her small face pale except for the fever-bright spots on her cheeks. "Just a traveler, sweetheart. Go back to sleep." But Lian was looking toward the window with the strange perception children sometimes possessed. "He's hurt bad, isn't he?" Every instinct screamed that Wade Morrison was dangerous, that letting him inside would bring death to her door. But Lian was dying slowly before her eyes. Another wet cough from her daughter made the decision for her. "If you so much as look at my daughter wrong," My Lin called to Wade, "I'll put a bullet through your heart without hesitation." "Understood," he replied simply. My Lin unbarred the door, rifle ready. The wind drove snow into the cabin. Wade stood hunched on her porch, one hand pressed to his side. Up close, he was even more dangerous looking than she'd thought, tall and broad-shouldered with the weathered face of a man who'd lived hard. When he raised his eyes to meet hers, she saw they were the color of storm clouds, gray and turbulent. But it was the gentleness in those eyes when they shifted to Lian that made My Lin's grip on the rifle relax slightly. "She's burning up," he observed quietly. 3 days now. I've tried everything I know." "The medicine?" Wade nodded toward his fallen horse. "In the saddlebags. But I'll need help." Against every instinct, My Lin propped her rifle by the door and moved to support Wade. The moment she touched him, she felt the fever burning through his clothes. They struggled through the snow. The horse was dead, but the saddlebags were intact. When Wade directed her to the right pouch, My Lin's hands found a collection of small bottles that looked more professional than anything she'd ever seen. "The blue bottle," Wade instructed, leaning heavily against her. 2 drops in warm water every 4 hours. "The white powder is for her chest." My Lin stared at the medicines in wonder. "Where did you get these?" "Denver. Was heading there on business when the storm hit." They made their way back to the cabin, My Lin half carrying him. She helped him to a chair by the fire, then immediately went to Lian. Her daughter's eyes fluttered open as My Lin gently lifted her head. "Is that the man who's hurt, Mama?" "Yes, sweetheart. He brought medicine for you." Lian's gaze shifted to Wade, who was slumped in the chair. "He looks sad," she observed. Only after Lian had taken the medicine did My Lin turn her attention to Wade. His coat was soaked with blood. When she helped him remove it, she found a bullet wound just below his ribs. "This needs to be cleaned and stitched," she said, falling into a practical mindset. "You don't have to." "Yes, I do. You brought medicine for Lian. I'm not going to let you bleed to death in my chair." She gathered her supplies, a clean cloth, needle and thread, a bottle of whiskey Wade had left behind. As she worked to clean the wound, Wade remained stoically silent. "The bullet's still in there," she murmured. "This is going to hurt. Most things worth doing do." As she worked, she found herself stealing glances at his face. The harsh lines were softened by exhaustion. "You said Wei saved your life," she said quietly. 5 years ago. I was different then. Younger, more foolish. Wade's voice was tight with pain. Got into a dispute over a mining claim with 3 rough men. Wei stepped in. Said he had a wife waiting for him who'd worry if he didn't come home. Talked about you like you were the most precious thing in the world. My Lin's hand stilled. He'd wanted a family so badly. They couldn't have children of their own, but then they found Lian orphaned when a cholera outbreak swept through a nearby railroad camp. Wei had insisted they take her in. He was a good man, she whispered. Which makes me wonder what a man like Wei would see in someone like you. Someone like me. Don't play innocent. I've heard the stories about a man called the Hawk. They don't call him that because he's gentle. Wade's smile was bitter. Stories have a way of growing in the telling. Are you saying they're not true? I'm saying there's usually more to a story than what gets told in saloons. My Lin pulled the bullet free. She cleaned the wound thoroughly, then began stitching it closed. Why are you really here, Wade? Wei may have mentioned me, but that doesn't explain why you'd risk your life in a blizzard to reach my cabin. Wade was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. Because I'm tired of running, he finally whispered. And because Wei said if I ever wanted to find a different path, his wife would know how to help a man start over. My Lin tied off the final stitch, then sat back. And you think I can do that? I think you're the only chance I've got left. Outside, the wind howled. My Lin looked from this dangerous stranger to her sleeping daughter, then to the medicine bottles that might save Lian's life. She was beginning to realize that sometimes salvation and damnation wore the same face. My Lin woke before dawn to the sound of Lian's breathing, deeper and more even than it had been in days. The fever had broken. Wade sat exactly where she'd left him, his posture suggesting he wasn't truly asleep. She moved to check on Lian, placing a hand on her forehead. Cool. How is she? Wade's voice was a whisper. Better. The fever broke. Thank you. Those medicines saved her life. Just glad they helped. My Lin studied his profile in the firelight. Even wounded, there was something cold about him. You should try to sleep properly. You lost a lot of blood. Wade finally opened his eyes. Not used to people worrying about my health, Mrs. Chen. My Lin, she corrected. And I'm not worried. I'm practical. Dead men can't help with chores. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Practical. I can respect that. The wind had died down. Snow had drifted against the cabin walls. We'll be snowed in for days, she said. I can make camp in your barn once the weather. No, My Lin's voice was firm. You'll stay here until you're healed. I won't have a man's death on my conscience. Wade studied her. Wei was right about you. He had said she possessed a quiet strength that shamed louder men. He always saw the best in people. Including me, apparently. Wade's tone was bitter. I know I didn't deserve his help. I was younger then, angrier, looking for fights. What changed? He was quiet for a long moment. I killed a man. Not in a fair fight. Just killed him because I was paid to. That's when I realized what I'd become. My Lin felt a chill. You're a killer for hire. Was Wade's jaw tightened? Been trying to leave that life behind for 2 years. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know what kind of man you're sheltering. My Lin absorbed this, weighing it against what she'd observed, the man who brought medicine through a blizzard, who'd asked about Lian's welfare before his own, who'd been honest about his past. People change, she said finally. Do they? Or do they just get better at hiding what they really are? She poured coffee into 2 tin cups and carried one to him. I think that depends on whether they want to change or just want to escape consequences. And which do you think I want? I think if you just wanted to escape, you'd have kept running instead of looking for redemption. They drank in silence. Mama, Lian's sleepy voice drew their attention. She was sitting up, her eyes clear. How do you feel, sweetheart? My Lin hurried to her side. Hungry, Lian said simply, then noticed Wade. You're still here. Storm's not over yet, Wade replied gently. Is it all right if I stay a little longer? Lian studied him. Are you still hurt? Some. Your mama fixed me up pretty well, though. She's good at fixing things. She fixed my doll when the arm came off, Lian said with absolute confidence. As My Lin prepared breakfast, Lian chatted to Wade about her favorite things. He listened with genuine attention. Do you have any children? She asked. His expression grew distant. No. Never really thought I was the type to be a father. Why not? Lian asked. Because fathers are supposed to protect their children, Wade answered honestly. And I've spent most of my life being the kind of man other fathers protect their children from. Leanne considered this. But you protected me. You brought medicine. I guess I don't know, he admitted. Mama says sometimes we don't know why we do good things, Leanne said wisely. We just do them because they feel right. Over breakfast, something shifted. The weariness between them eased, replaced by a fragile trust. But My Lin still caught Wade watching the windows, positioning himself where he could see the door. Whatever he was running from hadn't disappeared just because he'd found temporary shelter. The storm broke on the fourth day, leaving a world of pristine white. The trail's going to be impassable for another day or two, Wade observed, joining her on the porch. In the past 3 days, he'd proven surprisingly helpful despite his injury, splitting kindling and mending a broken chair. Long enough for you to decide what you're going to do, My Lin replied. When someone does make it up here, they'll recognize you. Worried about your reputation? I'm worried about Leanne, she said. Mr. Harrison has been looking for an excuse to declare me an unfit mother and take custody of her. Having a known gunslinger in my home would give him all the ammunition he needs. Wade's expression darkened. Aldrich Harrison. He owns most of the mining operations. He's had his eye on this land for years, hasn't he? He's been pressuring me to sell since Wei died, My Lin's jaw tightened. He doesn't think a Chinese woman can hold this land. What if it wasn't just one woman? Before My Lin could respond, the sound of approaching horses carried across the frozen air. 3 riders. That's Dr. Finch's bay, My Lin said, then her heart sank. And Sheriff Brody, and Mr. Harrison himself. Wade's hand moved instinctively toward his gun belt. I should go. Where? There's nowhere to run. Help me get Leanne inside, then sit in the chair by the fire. Let me do the talking. The riders reached the cabin. Dr. Finch, a kindly man, looked relieved. Sheriff Brody, younger and ambitious, seemed disappointed. But it was Harrison who commanded attention, a tall, silver-haired man whose expensive clothes marked his power. Mrs. Chen, Dr. Finch called. Thank heavens you're all right. We're fine, Doctor. Nevertheless, Harrison interjected, his voice dripping disapproval. This storm demonstrates exactly why this arrangement is unsuitable. A woman of your background has no business living in such isolation with a child. This is our home, Mr. Harrison. We manage. Lot of tracks here, Mrs. Chen, Sheriff Brody noted. Looks like you had company. A traveler took shelter, My Lin said steadily. He was badly injured. What kind of traveler? Harrison's eye sharpened. The kind who needed medical attention. Dr. Finch, perhaps you should examine him. They entered the cabin. Wade was in his chair, a blanket pulled to his chin, eyes closed. Good Lord, Dr. Finch exclaimed, moving toward him. This man's been shot. A hunting accident, My Lin said quickly. Who is he? Sheriff Brody demanded. Says his name is Wayne Miller, My Lin lied. Strange, Harrison mused. A man travels all the way from Kansas, gets shot, and just happens to find shelter with the most notorious widow in 3 counties. He moved closer, his sharp eyes missing nothing. You know, Sheriff, there's something familiar about this man. The walls were closing in. Mr. Miller isn't dangerous, Leanne piped up from her bed. He helped me feel better, and he knows lots of stories. Dr. Finch smiled, but Sheriff Brody frowned. You said he was delirious. How could he have been telling stories? Harrison was studying Wade's face. Sheriff, doesn't this man remind you of someone? That scar just above his left eyebrow. The recognition dawned. Now that you mention it, Judge. I've seen that face on wanted posters, Harrison declared. I believe we're looking at Wade Morrison. The Hawk. There's a $500 bounty on his head. The name hit the cabin like a physical blow. Dr. Morrison paled, and Sheriff Brody drew his weapon. "Mr. Morrison," Harrison said with cold satisfaction. "I know you're awake." Slowly, Wade opened his eyes. "Harrison." "Been a while." Sheriff Brody's gun was steady. "Arrest this man immediately," Harrison commanded. "You can't take him," My Lin heard herself say. "He's still my patient." All eyes turned to her. "He's injured and under my care," she stated firmly. "As the only medical practitioner for 20 miles, I have the authority to determine when he's fit to be moved." Harrison's eyes narrowed. "Are you refusing to surrender him to lawful authority?" "I'm saying I won't let you kill a man in my home by moving him before he's ready." "My Lin, don't," Wade said, pain in his eyes. "I'm not worth it." "You're a man who brought medicine to save my child's life," she replied. "That's all that matters." "How touching," Harrison sneered. "Sheriff, I'm ordering you to arrest both Mrs. Chen and Mr. Morrison. She can answer for her crimes alongside his." The blood drained from My Lin's face. If they arrested her, what would happen to Lian? "There's just one problem with your plan, Harrison," Wade said. He slowly pushed himself upright, the blanket falling away to reveal his gun belt was within easy reach. Despite his injury, he was suddenly the most dangerous man in the room. "The problem is that you're threatening the woman who saved my life. And I take that kind of thing personally." "Nobody needs to die here today," Wade said, his voice calm. "Sheriff, you seem like a decent man. You really want to start a gunfight with a child in the room?" Sheriff Brody's eyes flicked toward Lian, who was pressed against My Lin's side. "I don't want any trouble, Morrison, but you're a wanted man." "Stop," My Lin said, stepping forward. "This is my home. My daughter is terrified. I will not have violence here. Enough of this nonsense." Harrison's patience snapped. "Sheriff, arrest them both, or I'll find someone who will." "You'll find someone who will what, exactly?" A new voice came from the doorway. Everyone turned to see a tall, lean figure silhouetted against the snow. "Deputy Marshal Grant," Dr. Finch breathed. "Thank God." The U.S. Deputy Marshal surveyed the scene. "Harrison," Grant said with polite neutrality. "Interesting way to conduct official business." "Marshal," Harrison began, his tone shifting. "We've discovered Mrs. Chen has been harboring a dangerous fugitive." Grant's eyes found Wade. "Is that so?" "Well, Mr. Morrison, you certainly get around." "Marshal," Wade acknowledged with a slight nod. Grant stepped fully into the cabin. "Sheriff, you can lower your weapon. I'll handle this." He turned to Harrison. "Actually, there might be a complication with that arrest." "What kind of complication?" "The kind where Mr. Morrison isn't technically a fugitive anymore." Grant pulled an official document from his coat. "Presidential pardon. Signed 3 days ago. Conditional, but valid. Mr. Morrison has been working with federal authorities, providing information about certain criminal organizations." My Lin felt her knees go weak with relief. Harrison's face turned purple. "That's impossible." "It was classified," Grant said mildly. "You didn't need to know." "But he's a killer." Harrison sputtered. "Actually," Grant said, "the man he killed was running a counterfeiting ring. Mr. Morrison did the government a favor." My Lin stared at Wade, seeing him in an entirely new light. "Even if this is legitimate," Harrison fumed, "it doesn't excuse Mrs. Chen. She knowingly harbored a man she believed to be a criminal." "Mrs. Chen," Grant's voice was sharp. "Did you know Mr. Morrison was wanted by federal law enforcement?" My Lin met his gaze. "No, Marshal. I knew he had a violent past, but I didn't know about any federal warrants." "Then she's guilty of nothing more than Christian charity," Grant declared. "Which, last I checked, wasn't a crime in Colorado." He turned to Harrison. "As for Mrs. Chen's fitness as a mother, those are civil matters. You'll have to pursue them through appropriate channels." After Harrison and the sheriff left, Marshal Grant remained. "The pardon is conditional," he told Wade. The condition is you stay out of trouble. He looked between them. And a widow of your standing, Mrs. Chen, living alone with a notorious gunslinger, that won't win you any popularity contests. Harrison isn't going to forget what happened here. You two might want to think about how to make this arrangement look respectable. With that cryptic advice, he tipped his hat and left. The storm outside had ended, but the storm in their lives was just beginning. 3 weeks later, Mai Lin stood on her porch, watching the sunset. Colt had stayed. His wound had healed, yet each morning he found a new reason to remain. "Mama, look!" Lian's voice drew her attention. Wade was helping her build a small snow fort near the barn. Over the past weeks, Mai Lin had watched their bond grow. The feared gunslinger had become a patient teacher and a gentle friend to her daughter. Dr. Finch approached on horseback, his face creased with worry. "I'm afraid I have news. Harrison has filed a formal petition with the territorial governor, claiming your arrangement poses a danger to Lian's moral development. He's requesting a custody hearing in 2 weeks. In Denver." The words hit like a physical blow. The 3-day journey was impossible in winter. "If you don't appear," the doctor said gently, "he wins by default." What exactly is he claiming? Wade's voice came from behind her, dark with anger. "Moral corruption, improper supervision," Dr. Finch recited. "He's claiming Mrs. Chen's association with you makes her unfit to raise a child." "And he's probably right," Wade said quietly. "I should leave tonight. Disappear and take the problem with me." "Absolutely not," Mai Lin's response was immediate and fierce. "You're not running away." "Perhaps there's another solution," Dr. Finch said, clearing his throat. "Marriage." The word hung in the air. "I beg your pardon." Mai Lin managed. "It's simple," the doctor said. "Harrison's petition is based on the impropriety of your arrangement. A marriage would eliminate that objection." "Who said anything about convenience?" Wade interrupted quietly. He stepped closer, his voice low. "Mai Lin, I've watched you with Lian, seen your courage. You're the strongest woman I've ever met. I know my past, the danger that follows me. But these past few weeks have been the happiest of my life." "What about Lian?" Mai Lin whispered. "A life with 2 parents who love her and would die to protect her," Wade replied without hesitation. "This is insane," she said, her voice lacking conviction. "Is it more insane than letting Harrison destroy everything?" "I'm asking, Mai Lin, because I love you. I love Lian. I love this life we've started building." The words overwhelmed her. "You love me. I've been in love with you since the day you stood between me and Harrison's threats." "Mr. Wade." "Mama." Lian ran toward them, her face bright. "Look what I found." She held up a small object. It was a ring, a simple gold band. "By the old tree stump where you said Papa used to sit. Do you think it was his?" Mai Lin's breath caught. Wei had loved that spot. The ring could very well have been his, lost long ago. "Maybe Papa left it for you to find when you needed it," Lian suggested. Mai Lin stared at the ring, and suddenly everything was clear. "Mai Lin," Wade said softly. "I know I'm not Wei. But I'll spend every day trying to be worthy of you." Mai Lin looked at her daughter. "Lian," she said carefully. "How would you feel if Mr. Wade became part of our family? If he stayed with us always?" Lian's face lit up. "Really? He could be my papa?" "Yes. He tells the best stories, and he makes you smile, Mama." Over Lian's head, Wade's eyes met Mai Lin's. "So, what do you say, Mai Lin Chen?" She looked at the ring, then at the man who had brought salvation wrapped in danger. "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes, Wade Morrison. I'll marry you." Dr. Morrison broke into a wide grin. "Well, I'll be. Pardon my language, Mrs. Chen. But I think this calls for a celebration." As Wade pulled Mai Lin into his arms and Lian danced around them, Mai Lin felt a certainty she hadn't experienced in years. Let Harrison bring his custody hearing. Let him try to take their land. He would find out why Wade Morrison had earned his reputation, and why My Lin Chen had never backed down from a fight. Together, they were stronger than any storm.